Hi, I'm Owen, the host of the Australian Finance Podcast. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Betashares, one of the leading providers of ETFs here in Australia. Serving thousands of financial advisors and over 1 million investors, Betashares manages tens of billions of dollars on behalf of investors right across the country. I'm proud to partner with Betashares on the Australian Finance Podcast, Australia's premier financial podcast, because there is great alignment in the long-term philosophy shared by both businesses. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Australian Finance Podcast.
Lexi Smith, welcome to this episode of the Australian Finance Podcast. Usually these are done between Owen and I, and we do a Q&A every single week where we answer listeners' questions. So I was so excited to have a special guest, you, on the show, and I pulled out some of our listener questions that are really specific to your area of expertise, cash flow, you being the cash flow critique queen. So Lexi, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. Now, for those who aren't familiar with Lexi, do you want to give us a little bit of a spiel on who you are and what you do? I guess for listeners, it's important to understand that Lexi's a money coach, which she'll tell us all about. And she's actually on our website. She, myself, and also another money coach called Karen are the coaches that you can find as like partners on the website that we refer clients to and that we're really comfortable and absolutely love. So I'm shocked that you haven't been on before.
I've been waiting for my moment, and here we are.
Here we are.
I really hate that question, actually. Like, tell us about yourself. I think most people hate that question. But like you, Gemma, used to be a financial planner or financial advisor. Names are interchangeable. So now I do financial coaching. So I sidestepped the same time as you in around 2020. So 5 years in now. And so financial coaches deal more with the everyday money management and also goal achievement, as opposed to financial advisors who are more about insurance, investing, and super.
Product and strategy.
Yeah.
Great. And so why did you leave financial advice?
So many reasons. And if we started to talk about that, we would probably use our whole episode. So I love doing what I do now. And I think that when I was in year 9 or 10 at school and I decided I wanted to be a financial advisor, I thought that what I'm doing now is what it would be like. And obviously it isn't. So whilst I was in that world for 10 years, financial coaching is just my passion. It's what I love doing. I never actually feel like I'm working, which, people say that. Find something to do that you don't feel like you're working, and I did it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I will link. So Owen and I did an episode that went out probably 6 months or so, and it was all around what is a money coach. So I'll link that. So if people are interested in diving more into what that is, I talk about it to Owen there, and then you can head over to the website and you can connect with Lexi as well. But very special. I don't think we've had a Q&A guest before. They're usually Owen and I. So because cash flow, budgeting, all of that kind of stuff is your jam, I've pulled out the questions that we get and I've made them specific to this. So this is a special Q&A with a guest and all around cash flow. So let's get into it. Before we get into it, actually, like always, general advice, a warning. This, we might talk about products, we might talk about different strategies and things. It's really important that you understand that it is for education, entertainment purposes. It's not financial advice. You need to check if these things work for you, maybe get advice, do your own research. But just depending on where we go when we start chatting, just make sure that you know that this is all general and it doesn't necessarily apply to your situation. Okay, first question. So, Lexi, for some context, we always get people to try and put like a funny name and stuff.
I did notice that.
Yeah, so we've got some good. So we got Feelin' Broke. Hey guys, love the show. I wanted to ask how you think people getting paid monthly should manage their money. It's hard to make it last till the next payday. Oh, I feel this one. When I lived in the UK, we used to get paid monthly. Oh, so bad. And I know, it's actually more common here than I thought it was. I thought kind of everyone got paid fortnightly. But Lexi, cash flow queen, tell us, what do you think this person should be doing?
Well, just quickly on that point of like how popular it is in Australia, I would say probably 20% of my clients get paid monthly.
So that's so much higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah. a lot of those clients do kind of go through the first 3 weeks totally fine, and then it's in that 4th week that they really feel the pinch. So one way to do that is to basically split your pay into weekly chunks and then in effect pay yourself weekly. So even though it comes in monthly, you then almost drip feed it to yourself, but you would need to make some adjustments for any larger bills like rent or mortgage. But you may find that there's this amount for your, some people might refer to it as fun money, because that's normally what gets used up quite quickly if you're not careful, to then drip feed their fun money back to themselves.
Yes, I love that. So it's like a bit of an allowance. So if you've got like a discretionary account, that one would just be topped up each week. I actually do that for me because, we're self-employed for the most part. So I have my allowance, my fun money that refreshes, and I've got it every Friday because I used to do it every Monday. And then I was just like, actually, I just want the replenish for the weekend. So that works better for me. But I love that. And it kind of feels like you forget it's payday because you're getting paid every week regardless.
And so that's not the only way that you can do things. I would also encourage anyone that is in this cycle to really sit back and have a look at all of their finances and where they do sit financially, because it may be that there needs to be a bit of a mindset shift or an increase in income. So whilst, yes, you can split your pay up and drip feed it to yourself, it might be a good idea to take the time to really review everything, because it may well be that spending, you've got caught in the lifestyle creep and maybe spending's actually too high. And so if you can focus on being really mindful and intentional spender, maybe you can just naturally last the full 4 to 5 weeks. So yeah, there's 2 options there. If you haven't tried either of those, try both of those. And if that doesn't work, back to the drawing board. We find with all of this personal finance stuff that there are so many ways to do things. And if something doesn't work, it's not you that is broken. You just haven't found the thing that works for you.
I love that. And I like that you've raised the point. It's kind of like, well, yes, you could split up your pay and get an allowance, but that might be a Band-Aid for a bigger issue. So yeah, you don't want to just put something in place that potentially is not working anyway. Great. Okay. So that is for feeling broke. Next, we have Savvy Sal. I think I do okay with my budget and my spending, but I'm not sure what I should be focusing on with my surplus. Debt or emergency fund? Question. So this person sounds like they're managing their money really well. They sound like they're on top of everything and their spending's working well, but they have surplus, which is great. That's the goal. What do they actually do with it? Should it go to debt or should it go to emergency fund?
Do you remember that old El Paso ad? Why don't I have both?
Porque no los dos. Yeah, I think Owen and I say it in like every second episode and we still don't know how to say it properly.
Obviously, every situation is completely different. It would depend on how much debt, what the interest rates are, whether you have an emergency fund to start with. But I would be at least having some sort of emergency fund, like starting with that. A very common thing to do, a common comment that is made in the personal finance world is to build up at least $1,000 as an emergency fund and then reassess. And maybe then you start directing 50% to building your emergency fund higher and 50% to additional debt repayments. But case by case basis, there's no right or wrong. But if you are actually focusing on this stuff and you have these questions, the grass is greener where you water it. So you are doing something right already. And don't feel like you can't change partway through. So it might be for a few weeks you do focus on your emergency fund, and then for a few weeks you focus on your debt, and then you jump back to your emergency fund. That's totally fine. Personal finance is personal.
That is so good. And I think the thing that we overthink as well is that it has to be all or nothing, and it can absolutely be flexible. My only concern is if you don't have an emergency fund at all, like not even to that 1,000, that if an emergency was to happen and you're focusing on debt, potentially you need to go into more debt if an emergency arises. So I think a balance is really important, but I love that this person is actually thinking about it, and potentially they already have an emergency fund that is on its way. So yeah, as Lexi said, por qué no los dos?
Something else as well, it may well be that that emergency fund is, let's just use some figures to make it a bit easier to comprehend. Let's say the emergency fund is $5,000, but there's a credit card debt of $2,000. It doesn't necessarily make much sense to be paying 20% interest when you're only getting maybe 5% interest on your savings. I see that a lot where people have debt and they have the money to repay it, but there's something stopping them from actually using that money to repay that debt. And again, I know people hate hearing it depends, because it does depend, but if you're one of those people that you could pay off your debt, work out what's stopping you.
Yes, because it's obviously a mindset shift as well. But like I talk about in my book, shameless plug, The Money Reset, about your sleep at night test. So it might be that you could pay off all your debt, but you won't sleep at night for that. So what is the happy medium that you think, right, I've put enough on my debt that I'm comfortable with it, but I still have that safety net? So you've absolutely got to apply it to yourself. And maybe you do it in stages. So say you, in this example, you had 5,000 there. You didn't want to pay the whole 5,000 off the loan because you're concerned about it. Maybe you do it in chunks and you just sit with that and go, okay, I still feel safe with the amount that I've got in my savings or emergency fund. Next month, I'm going to reassess. Do I feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, working out that trade-off as well. So it may well be that you are going to pay an extra, I'm just pulling a figure out of the air here, an extra $200 in interest. But if that means that you can sleep at night and you're okay with that, then that's okay.
Yes, I actually did a blog recently. It went out a couple of weeks ago. So obviously I've got veneers, and when I got my teeth done a couple of years ago, I actually put it on credit. So I did one of those like interest-free loans where you pay the monthly fee, and I worked it out. And I actually had the money to do it, but the reason I still went for that is I had some other things going on: a divorce, which legal expenses were happening, a house build that I didn't know if it was going to blow out. So I was like, I don't like, this is important for me. I want to do this procedure, but I don't want to forfeit my cash in case something comes out. So I put a blog out the other week because I just finally paid it off. So from a finance perspective, it passed my sleep at night test, but usually I would say, why would you take on bad debt? But for my circumstance at the time, I was like, trade off. I'm going to sleep better at night knowing that I've kept my cash with me. So yeah. Gemma paid off a bad debt.
Woo-hoo.
All right, next question. We have this from Business Boss. Help. I've started a business and I'm not sure how I should be managing my money. I will have tax. I'll have some expenses for the business to pay. Okay, this is a really good one because I think like a lot of people, will start a business with no experience, and there's such a steep learning curve on all of that, plus the personal finance side and all these new expenses. And that's even before you consider having employees and all that kind of stuff. So how do you help people with kind of, let's pretend it's like basics, just absolutely getting started?
The very first thing I would say is to keep money separate, to have separate accounts. So I am okay with having just one personal account. That doesn't suit everyone, but that suits me personally. But when you have a business come into the mix, it's really important to have that separate account. It makes potentially your accounting cheaper because it's less work for the accountant to work out what has happened, but also having maybe a separate tax account for business as well. So if you have a business, it makes sense to have at least 3 accounts total. You might have more, and that's fine, but at least 3 to really try and segregate money as it should be.
Yeah. So what are we doing? Everyday tax expenses.
So an everyday account, like your personal account, a business account. If you're a sole trader, you can still have a separate business account, and you would need to have a separate account if you had a company, and also an offshoot account, if you like, of a tax account where you are setting aside the tax that you are expecting to have to pay until it is actually due. Because we find a lot of businesses, particularly new businesses, get the money starting to come in, but then spend the money or pay it out as wages or whatever it might be. And then there's nothing left when they need to pay their tax bill. And then
The
they get
first year,
into,
they get that big shock.
yeah, it's so common to then get their tax bill. So now in the new year, they not only have to pay off their old tax, but they also need to start setting aside tax for the new income as well. And that can be really, really hard. And it can lead to businesses having to close down. So trying to be on the front foot from the first day is a really sensible move.
Yeah. And so how you would work out what amount. So let's just say how this works in actual day-to-day is, say you invoiced or you had some money coming in, you might check it once a week or once a month and you go, right, all this money came in, there's a percent that I'm going to swipe for tax and put aside. So I hear really commonly the amount of 20%. Like if you have no idea, I kind of go, yeah, well, that 20% just makes sense if you're just getting started, at least be doing something. But if you have a bit of an idea on what you might earn, you could go onto like a pay calculator online and kind of put it in and go, oh, well, that works out to be that much. If you're working with an accountant, they could be doing some projections and things. It is really hard to work out, but I would just be putting away something of what you're kind of targeting, working it out. But yeah, like for me, I remember the first few years, I was just always doing like 20%. And I think it actually usually meant I had more saved than not. And maybe you're actually doing, so say 20% was the figure that worked for you. Maybe you actually put 30 away because you want to be adding super and things like that. But I love the idea of people from day one of their businesses. And I know it's not always, realistic, but from day one, factoring in tax, superannuation, and all of those kind of things and running it like a proper business, but from day one.
Yeah. And that is something that you'll commonly hear accountants say, 20 to 30%. So you and I aren't accountants, but if we can help people set aside something so that it takes some pressure off in the future, then that's what we want to do. So if you've got a business, speak to your accountant. But if you still aren't sure or you don't have an accountant or whatever it might be, 20 to 30% is a good start.
Yep. And if you've got some left over at the end, it's like savings that you can, be putting somewhere else, back into the business, taking out, putting into super. But yeah, we want to avoid the shock of the first tax bill. So next question, and this is the last one. This is from Family Guy. I have a question around helping kids with money. My 17-year-old has just started their first job. They've never had pocket money or an allowance before, so it is really the first time that they're managing money. What should I be teaching them? I love this one. Lexi and I, we do talk about kids and money a lot. So tell us, what should Family Guy be considering?
Just before we answer Family Guy's question, I do love talking to kids about money. Firstly, I have a 5 and an 8-year-old, so I'm in the zone already. But it really does impact them as adults when we talk to kids about money. And so with Family Guy already has a 17-year-old. Whilst you've mentioned that they've never had pocket money or an allowance, my suggestions would really depend on how much you already talk to them about money and about future goals. So the more that we can incorporate this in our everyday, the more we can normalize talking about money, the better. And so, being in the role that I'm in, having the business that I have, I do talk a lot about money and my kids notice that. Pretty much any discussion that we have seems to include money.
To come back to money.
I obviously am the extreme. You don't have to go quite as extreme as me. But I don't know. I seem to be able to incorporate it into everything. So at the moment, my son really loves before school care. And long story short, that's been working for me as well. But we're now talking about, because I have the ability to be able to drop them off and not pay the before school care fees. Now we're saying, okay, we know you love before school care, but how about we go to Disney World instead? So He can still make the choice to go to before school care, but sometimes I can convince him, like, let's not pay this money unnecessarily. I can just drop you off closer to the bell. And we're now saving for Disney World because they're slowly getting tall enough to go on all the rides. And they're really excited by that.
And so he understands the trade-off that it costs money to go to this, but that's taking away money from us potentially being able to go to Disneyland.
Yeah. And so whilst your 17-year-old might not want to go to Disney World or Disneyland or wherever, we might be going, what do they want? Like, do they want a car? Or if they've already got a car, do they want a different car? Or do they want to move out of home? Do they need a bit of an emergency fund? Like, what do they want? Do they want to go and study? Do they want to study interstate? Do they want to be the youngest in their family to ever buy a house? Like, really dream big and talk to your 17-year-old or however old your kids are about what they really want to do. And then have those trade-off discussions all the time. So, yeah, you can go and buy whatever it is that they want, but what is the trade-off? Does it mean that it will take you longer to achieve those other goals? And I know that this works because this is what happened in my childhood. And I find money really easy now. I don't feel stressed about money. Money comes easily to me. I don't feel bad about spending money. It's just because it was part of my day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that is so important, having the conversation and making them really aware that money is a tool to get them the things that they want if they can be responsible with it and have like a plan and know what they want to do with it. So the other thing that I would want this person to do is when they sit down and look at their payslip with them, because I find so many people don't understand. So, and just be like, hey, so this is how many hours it costs you, how many hours it took for you to earn this. See this big chunk of money that's been swiped, that's tax. Maybe superannuation, at some point go, hey, so this is your money too. You earned this, but it's gone into, so you don't have to be a financial expert to kind of know this stuff, but just them knowing what this email is, payslip that they get each week, fortnight, and that these big things have come out of it. One is to tax, that pays for your roads, your hospitals, stuff. One is to superannuation, and that's for your money. And this is left. And maybe you do like a little budget with them. And if they've got a car, how much fuel's going, you want to go out with your friends, how much is left over for that big thing that you're excited about, just so they actually know this is real money, because we don't see it. We just tap away. It just comes. So I think the more you can just have really casual conversations, and maybe you do all of this over months and months, and it's not, let's sit down with a whiteboard. Could you imagine my kids? And I'm just 2-hour session, let's go.
And really gauge, sometimes we're just not in the mood for things. I know sometimes when my husband tries to talk to me about something, it's just I'm not in the mood, not the right time. Let's talk about it at a different time. And the outcome from those conversations is obviously going to be different. So, sometimes when I talk to my kids about something to do with money, you can tell they're not interested, they're not listening, they're in a bad mood, whatever it is. And then other times when they come back to me with questions, oh, why? But how? When? That's when it's the right time and to really lean into that. So, you don't want to make money feel like a chore or something that, talking about tax. Tax is actually a good thing because I would rather make money and pay tax than not pay tax but not make any money.
Exactly.
So it depends on how you frame these things as well.
Yeah. And they're 17, so they're already going to have their, mindset and ideas and subconscious beliefs around money. So this is really a time that you can talk to them about it, find out how they're feeling. There's some great resources and stuff online as well. But yeah, I'd be talking to them about what they actually want and what the future looks like so they can put a value on it. Looking at, a payslip just so they understand it. I think that would be really valuable. Okay, so we've gone through feeling broke, was talking about their monthly pay. Savvy Sal was should we be putting more money into a debt or an emergency fund? We had the business boss, just how do we set up the business from day one kind of to work those expenses and tax? And then we had Family Guy talking about 17-year-old just got their first job. So Lexi, thank you so much for joining me as the special guest on this week's Q&A. I will definitely make sure that you're back in the future so that we can say you're on all the time like I already thought you were.
Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you want to hear more from us, you can get daily videos and podcasts on Rask's YouTube channel. Or if you want to enroll in a free course on investing, property, business, money, you name it, you can join over 34,000 other students and enroll in a free course on the Rask website. Simply head to www.rask.com.au and follow the prompts. Thanks for watching this Rask podcast.